Hi, so my name is Emma, and I am doing video assignment number 3. And for this one, I chose to do option number 2, which is to just go over the notes by myself. So I hope that these notes make sense for you guys, and that you can get something out of it, I guess. Um, I'm going to be focusing on chapter 8, which is all about sampling. So we're going to talk about what a sample is, why we do it, and then non-probability versus probability sampling and the difference between those two. Yeah. So let's get into that. So first, just looking at sampling in general. So sampling is if you want to look at a population, but you don't have the ability to talk to the whole population. So let's say, for example, you're doing a study about all freshmen at Utah State University and how they're acclimating to university life. Okay, yeah, that's I think that would work. So talking to every single freshman at Utah State would take a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of resources. It's not convenient. It's not a convenient way to do it. So what sampling is you're taking a few members of that population and using them to represent your whole study. So yeah, that's what you take a population. It's just a lot more convenient. You don't have to talk to as many people. But it still can be applied to everyone else. Now, there are different ways to go about sampling. There is non-probability sampling and probability sampling. So I'm going to start with non-probability sampling. And the biggest thing about non-probability is that every person does not have an equal chance of being selected. So every freshman at Utah State can be selected, but they don't all have an equal chance. Maybe this group has a higher chance of being selected than this group. And that could be for various different reasons, but that is the essential thing of non-probability, is not everyone has an equal chance of being selected. Let's see. Few ways that that you can incorporate these samples, and a few methods that really made sense to me when I was reading about it. First off, there is convenient sampling. So convenient sampling is when you take a population that is convenient to you to study. So if it's freshmen at Utah, okay, that's not really convenient for me at all because I don't know very many freshmen, but let's just say I was doing a study of all Utah State students, right? Who would be convenient for me to talk to? My husband, because he's a student at USU and he lives with me, so that's pretty easy. My good friends who live in my old apartment, they're really easy to talk to. So yeah, you're talking to classmates, that would be easy to talk to. You're pulling a sample that is convenient to you. It's not a lot of effort to get these people to participate. It's just, yeah, it's really a convenient sample. At least you're getting something here. But convenient sampling is hard because you're probably pulling people who have similar opinions to yourself. If you're really good friends with them, whatever, you're probably pulling all similar people. They come from the same group as you do. So it's not very representative. The other way for sampling non-probability is snowball sampling. So let's say I know one freshman at USU and that's it, okay? So I go talk to that person. That person then refers me to another freshman at USU. Then that person refers me to another freshman. They refer me to another and another, and it keeps going. It's snowballs, right? It's a snowball sample. And so this can be good way to like get into a community that you don't really know very many people in it. You just know this one person. The problem though is that, again, people are going to recommend people who they hang around with, who probably think like them, they're in the same groups. So you're probably going to get a very similar sample of people. So it's still not going to be very representative of a population. And then the last thing about non-probability sampling, the last way that I really wanted to talk about was volunteer sampling. Volunteer sampling is like it sounds. People volunteer to participate in your study. This can be good, because at least you're, like I said, it's like convenient sample. At least you're getting something, and there are some things where you have to have people volunteer for it. But it can also be hard because people who volunteer for studies are most likely people who are passionate about that subject, who want to share their thoughts. So you're not going to get a representation of people who are maybe a little less passionate about it, but still have like opinions. So it's still not very representative of the whole population. And I think that's pretty much the main thing that I took away from non-probability is sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it is the best way to go about it, but you're probably not going to be able to draw conclusions for a whole population based on non-probability sampling. Okay, now moving on to probability sampling. So it's the opposite of non-probability. It means that everyone in a group has an equal chance of being selected. So the big idea with this is to turn over your selection process to a mechanism that does it for you. So your bias is not in the situation at all because it's this mechanism that chose everyone in the study. And everyone had an equal chance of being chosen. So the first way, the simplest way to do probability sampling is simple random sampling, or SRS. So our SRS is it's like pulling names out of a hat, essentially. So again, if we go back to the freshmen at USU, simple random sampling, you would assign every single freshman at USU a number, and then you would randomly generate numbers and use those students with that assigned number until you get to your sample size. So let's say you want a sample size of 100. You randomly generate 100 numbers, and whoever that number corresponds with is the student you use. So benefits of this sampling method are that it's more random, so you're more likely to get a random, like a more inclusive sample of the whole population. But with SRS, there's also a good chance that, it's an all random sample. So you could have one group that's very overrepresented. You could have another group that's very underrepresented. So it depends how it all works out. So you have to be willing to kind of take that chance and see if that works best for what you're doing. Systematic sampling is the next one that I want to talk about. And I basically visualize it as like you're going down a list. So same type of idea, you have a number assigned to every freshman at USU. But with systematic sampling, you are not random generating every number. You only random generate one number. So let's say you generate the number 28. So you're going to start with the 28th student, and then you're going to take every 10th, 20th, 5th, whatever you want, student until you get to your desired sample size. So if I was going to go every 10th, I would take the 28th student, and then I'd take the 38th, then the 48th, then the 58th, and I'd keep going until I got my sample size. The downside of systematic sampling is that if you organize your list of freshmen in any natural pattern, the systematic sample could follow that pattern, and so you could end up getting a not very diverse sample. So that could be a potential problem with that. Then the last method that I want to talk about is stratified random sampling, which is it's a way to ensure that minority and maybe smaller groups are going to still be represented in your sample. So you have that list of freshmen, but now you organize them into smaller groups. Maybe that's ages, maybe that's test scores, maybe that's whatever you're looking at. You are putting them in smaller groups, and then you're doing the same thing as SRS. You're assigning them a number, random generating that number, and then you take a specific amount from each group until you get to your desired sample size. So it's just a way to make sure that everyone is going to be represented in your sample. You're not going to have 10 from this group but 0 from this group. You're going to at least have a few people from every single group. Yeah, so I think though that covers everything that I really got out of the chapter, that chapter 8 on sampling. Hopefully this made sense and it was helpful.